Hello. So today's video I want to address something a little thought-provoking. Not that I haven't thought of this before, but I just thought it was pretty thought-provoking for someone to ask me. And my friend asked me, is sensitivity a gift or a burden? And I have some takes. Okay, as a very sensitive person myself, I feel things really deeply and I'm kind of in tune with other people's emotions all the time and with my own emotions all the time. Thought I'd kind of say my take on this basically. So what do I think? So is sensitivity a gift or superpower? I think in a lot of ways it is a gift, and I think in general to this answer I would say it's a gift. I think especially in today's world where there's so many distractions, right? There's so many ways to kind of numb ourselves from feeling, doing human things, which is feeling, right? Which is having emotions and having emotional experiences, right? And rich experience that bring us a lot of emotion and joy and happiness. It's a very human thing to do that, but with kind of technology these days, with kind of everything in our environment these days, like advertisements telling you this and that, it's trying to numb us, right? In a lot of ways it can be numbing, and with all these kind of technology uses, right, it's a gift for someone to be able to really be in touch with themselves and really look inward with themselves, right? And be able to see others for their kind of emotional states and stuff. Because if you can understand someone's emotional state, you basically understand the person in so many ways, right? Obviously that's not like the only thing, but in so many ways you understand the person's kind of main essence of them basically, right? Someone's emotions that they regularly have kind of is a factor of their personality. So that's one way it's a gift, right? In a world where it's full of distractions, full of things that want us to look outwards, right? It's a gift for someone to really be able to master looking inwards. So that's like the first good thing that I thought of. And secondly, being really sensitive is what makes really good authors, right? What makes really good artists, right? People who can really vividly and kind of enrich you in any emotion, right? Poets and authors and artists, visual artists and songwriters, right? The most beautiful songs, is most likely by a person who's really sensitive and feels a lot and is able to capture kind of the depth of these things, because that's how they kind of perceive the world. So yeah, maybe the next heartfelt song you hear, just know it was probably from someone who's pretty sensitive and feel things really deeply. And lastly, sensitivity is a gift because it's just, I think, again, with our world, right, in a way it's a strength with this world, right? Sensitivity is I think even rebellious in this world a bit, because so many people have grown up always chasing the next thing, right? Always chasing success, right? Always chasing the good image, right? We're kind of taught with these ideas when we are as we're growing up, right? We're taught to get into good school, we're taught to have a good future, we're taught to look nice, right? These kind of ideas are said to us, and it doesn't really tell us how to feel within ourselves, right? When you have all these ideas, kind of external ideas, like success is outside of you and happiness is outside of you, right? It's very rebellious, I think, to feel, right? But ignore all of that and just still be able to feel, even in a world that's pushing us to do more. And you just take the time instead to sit with yourself, right? You know how to sit with yourself, you know how to identify yourself, right? You can ignore all this distraction and you can understand what's going inward, right? So many people even chase success, right? But they don't actually know what they truly want. And that's because they don't have the power of being more sensitive to themselves and more sensitive to their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And they can honestly, they can't ever live, authentically, I could say. So, in a lot of ways, sensitivity is a superpower from a sensitive person myself. But obviously, it has its kind of more difficulties, right? And I think the main difficulty with being really sensitive is that sensitive people perceive the world differently, right? It's very different from the average person. Like, they see everything much more deeply, right? Again, that's why in songs you often hear sorry I get distracted a little bit, but that's why in songs you often hear really heartfelt messages, really heartfelt beats, right? It's because they're able to capture these things, right? And it's really beautiful in a lot of ways. It makes art, it makes music, it makes beautiful storytelling. But because they feel things so deeply and so vividly and sometimes so intensely, like I know for myself I do, and it can definitely make them feel different from most people, because a lot of people are not in touch with themselves, considering like the things they grew up with, the ideas they grew up with, the messages of always look toward outside of yourself, right? Not so much be in tune with yourself, right? This is something that's, I think, is a minority, right? And so because of this difference in them, sensitive people, they might find it hard to relate to what others are saying, right? They just don't see the world the same as most people, the majority of people. And I think in a lot of ways that can cause a lot of problems, right? Understandably, in short, it can cause a lot of problems in kind of where they think they fit into this world, right? Having a sense of belonging in this world, whether we realize it or not, is really important for a human being to be emotionally fulfilled, right? They have to have some place of belonging, that feeling of belonging. And if you're sensitive, you might not get that as easily, right? You might not even think there's that as many sensitive people as you, right? You might say something about how you're feeling or something about what you think, and most of the time it might be dismissed or called crazy or something like that. I know I don't take them personally, thank God. Like, I'm pretty assured in myself and I like who I am, but it's just definitely can be a problem for some other sensitive people, right? Depending on their personality and where they're at in life, right? So that's the kind of harder side, right? The intensity of feelings. It's not something everyone can understand necessarily, and really understand what feelings you capture on a day-to-day basis. And that can cause a lot of frustration and stuff, but until the sensitive person finds out not everyone thinks like them, actually most people do not think like them, but that is their gift, right? They can definitely have some difficulties in the world and who they are and their identity. So yeah. And I want to add, like, anything specific to me, my experience of being a sensitive person, I just want to think about, because like I said, I'm super sensitive. And but I think honestly, if you are able to channel this sensitivity into something beautiful, like something that can be shared with the world, I think that is such a gift, right? If you, like, honestly, I think if you are thinking your sensitivity is a burden, you just haven't found a way, like a good way to channel that into something meaningful and purposeful. So something that will help others, something that will resonate with others, right? Yeah, so sensitivity is just such a deep, rich, beautiful characteristic to have. And I know, like, as a sensitive person, like, yeah, we might not want to cry all the time, you know? That's just a trait of being sensitive, of course. Maybe not all people who are sensitive cry, but just as an example, you might not want to cry all the time, right? And you might not want to cry when nobody else is crying, right? But this is a part of you, and it's what makes you really beautiful. And if you can channel these kind of things into something bigger, into videos, into art, into song, right, into poetry and stuff, I think that those are the kind of things that make our world beautiful, right? It's art, it's emotion, it's feeling, it's connecting, right? So yeah, that's my take on sensitive people. And the only difficult thing with me being sensitive is that I cry a lot. Like, I cry a ton. I guess a lot of people think I'm like very composed and calm because I know this much, like I think this much and stuff, and I'm often the one giving advice to other people because I see their issues, right? Yeah, and being sensitive makes you like really keen on other people's emotions as well. Yeah, because of that, like, other people might be like, oh, you probably have it all figured out and composed. Like, no. Like, I definitely am better with like my tools and how I use them, right? I definitely have better tools compared to a couple years ago, but I definitely don't always have it figured out. I definitely just sometimes want to give up and cry, you know. But I'm always able to get past it. I'm always able to understand it and feel it, most importantly, right? Not to just intellectualize all the time. So yeah, that's that. Wait, hold on. And yeah, so like the only thing for me being sensitive is just crying a lot. And I still have friends and family around me, and they're just like, what are you crying? You know, it's just like, yeah, it's really hard to assume. And another thing is, if the people in your environment are not as emotionally intelligent as you, right? They don't know how to sit with feelings, right? They don't have maybe as much empathy as you do, right? I can see that being a problem as well when you do have really big emotions, right? And when you do think about things deeply and when you do feel things deeply, like, definitely it can cause some friction in any relationship. I think like parental relationships is the main one I'm thinking of, but I think it can be any relationship, right? Like with your spouse or partner, if they're not really empathic, they might just be like, what the heck, you know, like, stop crying, you know, and then that'll cause obviously more to the sensitive person. But being sensitive is a combination of experience and also maybe something that's inherited from your parents, like a little bit of it, your thinking patterns and stuff. But yeah, that's my take. Is sensitivity a gift or burden? It's a gift. It's a gift in so many beautiful ways because it's so deep and it's so rich and it's so like colorful, you know. Being sensitivity is really colorful, and but you have to be able to channel that in a good way, right? You have to be able to journal about it, talk about it, right? Otherwise that's a pretty big load you're carrying there, right? Like all of that sensitivity, and there's nowhere for it to go. So yeah, so it definitely can get hard, and depending on the people you're with, right, it can get difficult. But in general, I love being sensitive, and I love having unique lenses on everything, you know, just because I see this world differently than most people, especially my age, teens, right? And yeah, that's my take. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if some other points, and yeah.